this bill signing. We are in a historic section of Sacramento to launch a historic effort. We are surrounded by small businesses that have come into this section of town in order to revive a vibrant downtown. The bills we enact here will work to aid businesses like these and revive a vibrant California. 1 year ago, we might have casually walked into a small business like Solomon's here or Horchateria in my district without thinking twice. In the intervening 12 months, we had to rethink everything we do, even going out to get a bagel or a coffee. In the intervening 12 months, the operation of these businesses has been anything but casual. I have not operated a business, but I did run a nonprofit organization before I ran for office. Running nonprofits and small businesses is never a casual enterprise. It's harder now. The pandemic forced owners, nonprofit directors, and their employees to think over and over again about how to keep things running. They have had to adapt to conditions that are constantly changing. The aid that we are offering today is a way to stabilize these important community fixtures. It is a recognition of the fact that small businesses and nonprofits are more than the services they provide. They are also important job creators and important cogs in our economic machine. Let me just pause to say thank you to them. We stand with you. Of course, it is not just these enterprises we see around us that are hurting. All of California has been shaken by this pandemic. We have been shaken, but we are still standing strong. We can look around and use that strength to help those who are most in need. This legislation will aid some of the people who have kept us going through the hardest times of this pandemic. Lower wage workers have often been on the front lines in service jobs with high levels of exposure. This will give them an additional tax rebate to help them make ends meet. We are also, for the first time, including taxpayers who are left out of the federal stimulus. There are so many immigrant workers doing the hard jobs, paying their taxes, and suffering from COVID at higher rates than the rest of the population. They are Californians. With this legislation, we are saying that we will stand with them too. The governor, the pro tem, and I are symbols here today. We symbolize the hard work of our staff, the hard work of administration departments, and the hard work of legislators who have put together this legislation. And we are here to symbolize 40 million Californians who have been through hard times in the past year. Despite those hard times, we can take our collective resources and use them to help one another and to help our state rebuild its greatness. In fact, that willingness to work and to share our resources is exactly what makes California great. It's my pleasure to introduce my partner, the Senate Pro Tem, Tony Atkins.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Speaker Rendon. I appreciated those comments and that symbolism. I want to thank you, Speaker, for being for the partnership that we've built to work through these challenging times. I don't think any legislative leaders have been faced with more adversity than we have. And I'm thankful that I'm leading the Senate at a time that you're the Speaker. I can't imagine battling through any of this with someone else, so thank you. I'd like to start by emphasizing that we're only here today because of the smart and sound decisions that Governor Newsom and Governor Brown before him made with the legislature to take a consistent and a fiscally prudent approach to budgeting. Because of our responsible approach over the past few years, a decade actually, we're able to make an investment of hope in the wake of what has been some of California's darkest days. Hope in the form of financial relief to those struggling the most to make ends meet, and that's working Californians and our small business owners. As we stand here at Solomon's Deli, which, by the way, I understand has the best bagels in Sacramento, I can't help, along with the Speaker, but think about the small businesses back home in San Diego, like Venice Pizza in North Park, the Book Catapult in South Park, one of my favorite places, and Professional Nail in Mission Hills, who will feel much needed relief from this package of legislation. And it's not just small businesses, as the Speaker pointed out, who will be on the receiving end of this help. 5.7 million working Californians stand to benefit from an additional $600, much needed cash in their pockets to help pay the bills. This will be made possible through our Earned Income Tax Credit program, something that is near and dear to my heart, something that Speaker Rendon and I worked on together to develop in the Assembly and have been working on ever since to improve, including a massive expansion of the program under Governor Newsom in 2019. Governor, thank you for that. Truly meaningful. Today, California is setting an example of what we can do when Republicans and Democrats come together to find bipartisan solutions. In many ways, our actions were guided by the economic advice of U.S. Treasurer Janet Yellen, when she said the price of doing too little is much higher than the price of doing something big. Make no mistake, California being in the position to put $10 billion into our economy where we need it the most is something big. And that's just the start. We will continue to build on these actions as we work on the state's budget in the coming months. So before I hand over the mic, I just want to say thank you to our governor. Governor Newsom, thank you for being willing to do something big for California. Governor.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for your incredible leadership. I'll brag on that in just a moment, but I just want to recognize Andrea and the team here at Solomons. It's great to be back. We were here in September signing some bills, economic relief bills, bond acceleration bills, hiring tax credit of $100 million. We put out a framework to allow new businesses to have that $800 franchise tax fee waived as well. We've seen a 21% increase in new business startups just in the last calendar year. So the issue of economic growth, economic development, economic incentives, tax credits, supports for small businesses is not unique to this moment and these bills that we're signing today. It's been a cause that's united each and every one of us, legislative leaders and the legislature, and of course, advocates across the spectrum here in the state of California. The backbone of our economy is small business. We recognize the stress, the strain that so many small businesses have been under, and we recognize as well our responsibility to do more and do better to help support these small businesses through this very difficult and trying time. With that said, this $7.6 billion of direct relief that we're providing today not only helps support small businesses, but supports, as the Pro Tem said, some 5.7 million Californians with direct stimulus check relief, not only in the EITC, but also people that have been beneficiaries of CalWORKS, SSI, SSIP, and the CAPI program. We're also providing support in the way of not only direct checks to that cohort, but as the Speaker rightfully noted, regardless of your status, those that have been left behind in that federal stimulus, California is not going to leave you behind. And I want to just congratulate the Speaker and the Pro Tem for their leadership and their demonstrable example of making sure that we're there for the folks that have always been there for us. I just got back from Arvin in Kern County. I had the privilege of being in Madera some 12 or so hours ago. Farm workers, food workers, never took a day off, never complained, and we're there to make sure that everything was on your table and tables all across this country. And I'm very honored to be here today as governor of this state that's not leaving those folks behind as it relates to legislation that addresses their need and provide relief directly, not only to individuals, but households of mixed status. And that's something, you know, frankly, distinctive in this country. I don't know many other states, any other state, that does what this state is doing, and for that we are not ashamed. We are proud. And so I just want to acknowledge their leadership and the remarkable support that we saw, as the Pro Tem said, across the spectrum, bipartisan support to advance this collective cause. So that cause, by the way, includes grants, $5,000 to $25,000 grants for small businesses, nonprofits, cultural institutions, an additional $2.075 billion in grants that will start going out, building on the $500 million of grants that have already been going out supporting small business. And I'll remind you, grants, not loans, a profoundly important distinction. So that's number one. Number two, we're providing relief in the way of fees and licenses. For 2 years, there'll be no cosmetology, barbering licenses. There'll be no fees associated with those licenses or with alcohol beverage licenses. I'll give you an example. the 59,000 businesses that have ABC licenses. Some of those license fees are as much as $1,235. We're waiving those fees not once, but over a 2-year period, in addition to these small business loans. That's the relief being provided in this package as well. The Golden State Stimulus is those dollars, that direct relief check of $600 to those categories I mentioned. And in addition to that, we're doing more on food banks. We're doing more for people, parents need diapers that can't afford diapers. We're doing more to support our community college system with financial aid and grants, $100 million. Boy, we're not just doing that at community college. We're doing it at the UC and CSU, over $300 million at the UC, $302 million, $299 million at the CSU of additional ongoing money for those conveyor belts for talent, second to none in the United States, those extraordinary institutions. All of that part of this package. The reason it's $7.6 billion, and the pro tem rightfully said this is about a $10 billion package, is because she's right. And in the next few days, we're going to conform those PPP loans, not only to the state, or rather state taxes and making exemptions, but on expenses. And that's about a $2.3+ billion commitment over a number of years that the state will be making this entire package just shy of $10 billion. That's big even by California standards. So we're very proud to be here, honored for their leadership. We moved quickly, we moved effectively, just as we did a few weeks ago on the issue of moratorium on evictions. Shows what we can do when working together across every conceivable difference, not just geographic, but also political and ideological. And so that bipartisan spirit is what we're also looking forward to taking in as we work, and invariably you're going to ask where we are with schools reopenings. We're working together on that. We're not going to negotiate. I know you'll get us to try to negotiate, all three of us together today. I don't mean to be the spokespeople for the Speaker or the Pro Tem. They can speak for themselves, but I don't intend to negotiate here today. All I can say is we've been negotiating for many, many weeks now, and that spirit that brings us here today, getting things done, is the spirit we're bringing into those negotiations on schools as well. Final brief points. When we talk about light, I'm talking about bright light at the end of this tunnel. I've been all over the state of California over the last few weeks, seen it firsthand. We're seeing vaccination rates increase across this state. We've surpassed the country of Israel in total number of doses that have been administered. Now over 7.4 million doses have been administered. We've been averaging just shy of about 200,000 doses every single day. The only constraint is manufactured supply. We're not getting enough into the state of California. 1.4 million arriving the end of this week, 1.52 million arriving at the end of next week. We can do well over 200,000 a day. So the only constraint is manufactured supply. The issue of equity is not a platitude. It's not a platform. It's not a promise. It's one we're really starting to deliver on with pop-up sites and regional efforts to really identify the most vulnerable and those that deserve more of our time and attention in terms of the cultural competency and the in-language outreach that's necessary to truly meet people where they are, not just these mass vaccination sites where people have cars and the tools of technology to get in line and to get ahead of others. And so that's our commitment, our resolve. That's an ongoing effort, but real progress is taking shape there. And in closing as well on this pandemic, today we'll announce 5 additional counties moving out of the purple tier into the red tier. We will preview 8 other counties that likely will be pulling out a week later, and even more still in 2 weeks. This is moving. Stabilize case rates, stabilize positivity rates. Positivity 7-day down to 3.0, 14 days 3.3. Case rates down to 3,500 today. Just think about 1 month ago today, it was 23,000 down to 3,500 a day. Hospitalizations down 41%, ICUs down 40% just in the last 2 weeks. Deaths, we had a record number of deaths a month ago yesterday, and now we have death rates about a third of what it was. Tragically still too high, but compared to where we were just 30 days ago. So we talk about light at the end of the tunnel. Again, I talk about a bright light. We're going to work through these next few weeks, next few months till we get to that herd immunity, get that manufactured supply, get these businesses fully operational, and provide this relief that's so desperately needed to millions and millions of Californians. And for that, I'm proud to be a Californian today and proud of the leadership that is assembled in this state, led by our Speaker and our pro tem. So with that, we are happy to take any questions, and I'm encouraged that the leaders are here, so we're not the only ones having to take questions. Oh, we should sign the bills, the reason we're here. So let's do that first. Sitting down for these things. We're all here. So we've got 6 bills we're signing today, and we can go through the bill numbers, but you got a gist of what we are signing. Look forward to the 7th on the PPE later this week. Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for your incredible leadership, the timeliness of getting this to us. With that, happy to take questions. You guys have any?
Hello, my name is Kevin John. I'm with ABC 10 right here in Sacramento. My question to you is, are sole SSDI recipients eligible for the stimulus? Just for clarification on that. And if they aren't, why not?
And forgive me, which SSI are beneficiaries?
SSI.
SSI and SSIP are beneficiaries of this program, correct?
Yes.
In the question, forgive me, I missed the question.
So sole people of SSDI, sorry.
Sorry.
Sole SSDI recipients, are they eligible under this?
Yeah, so it's CalWORKS, the CAPI program. CAPI program is relatively modest, about 15,000 people. CalWORKS beneficiaries that will get it through their EBT card mid-April, and then probably 7 weeks, those that have EITC will be the beneficiaries of those supports, and then SSI and SSIP recipients. Those are the 4 categories of eligibility and support in the program we just signed.
Hey, Governor Katie Orr with KQED News. First of all, so great to be back in person. Happy to be here. My question for you is, as you negotiate the school reopenings, rather than individual districts bargaining with their teachers' unions individually, have you considered or are you pursuing a statewide MOU with teachers' unions to kind of streamline the process?
Well, I'm not going to get into any details in the weeds right now. I'm not saying we're the 1 or 2 yard line, but we're certainly in the red zone in terms of working with the legislature and the Senate leaders and Senate and Assembly leaders and staff. And so I'll just leave it at that. We look forward to working together this week and see where we end up.
Hi, Governor. Ashley Zavala with Nexstar Media Group. With the the grants for small businesses, 77% in the first round were given to businesses that were considered disadvantaged, or they were owned by women, minorities, veterans, et cetera. Do you still hope to maintain that same ratio moving forward for who gets these grants?
Well, I really appreciate that question, and thank you for highlighting in those first 21,000 grants that we put out in that first half of the $500 million, we were able to identify 53% as minority-owned businesses, disproportionate number of women-owned businesses. But you rightfully note that 77% statistic, which is underserved, and that's defined more broadly, rural, not just urban, areas of part of the state that have traditionally been underserved and identified as such. And so we're hoping that's how we designed this. By the way, Isabel Guzman, not only one of the best, but the Biden administration sadly happily just took her to run the SBA federally. She helped design this system in distribution and allocation. And I think the reason the Assembly and Senate wanted to go even further in terms of subsequent support and application was because of the wisdom of making sure that we're guided by that equity principle and being able to prove, not just assert that on the basis of those first rounds of grants and applications. So absolutely, we're hoping in that spirit. It's not a numeric number, but in that spirit to continue to advance that.
Hi, Governor. Sophia Bolag here from the Sacramento Bee. I have two hopefully quick questions for you. First of all, just quickly, can you tell us when you're planning to name a new Attorney General for California? And then also there's a push for the state to guarantee 2 weeks of paid sick leave for workers who can't work because of COVID. Is that something that you support?
Well, I've supported in the past. We're working with legislative leaders on that precisely. And without getting into details and weeds, we were having this conversation, the three of us, just a number of days ago specifically. So we'll highlight that when we have more to say, at least unless they have something to say more on that point today. And then as it relates to the AG, I want to make sure that our current AG is confirmed. And when he is, and I anticipate he will be, with hearings this week, that we'll make that announcement shortly thereafter.
Thank you. Following up on Katie's question about school reopening, if you're not seeing sufficient progress on districts reopening in the next few weeks, would you consider using your emergency powers to suspend local bargaining and require schools to open?
You know, it was wonderful yesterday being in Madera with Madera Unified, watching 35 counties now have proactively been vaccinating our teachers, have been for weeks and weeks and weeks. The guidelines the state put out allow that flexibility. As I say, 35 counties have taken advantage of it. I started the day down in Long Beach, where they're now on their second doses of vaccines. Remarkable leadership down there. We're also seeing that in communities, large and small, Madera being another example of that. We have a framework going out next Monday, 75,000 doses minimum, 10% of all the new first doses arriving in the state will be set aside for our teachers. We'll be putting out details around that over the course of the next few days, how we're going to set aside administrator days in terms of ministering those doses for our educators, and how we're going to allow for equity in that distribution and allocation. As it relates to any of the details of the school negotiations, as I said, on now multiple occasions, we're going to leave those to the private conversations, and I'm very hopeful we'll be able to socialize those very shortly.
Hi, Governor. It's Alexi from the San Francisco Chronicle. Good to be back in person after so long. California trails nearly every state in the country in terms of the percent of students that have gotten back to in-person instruction. Why do you think California has been sort of uniquely unable to get schools back reopened so far?
Well, we're working on a deal with the legislature. I really am proud to be here with two legislative leaders that have really committed their personal time and energy to this cause. They're not outsourcing it to other staff and to other leaders. We've been engaged for weeks now, months, candidly, on getting our schools safely reopened for in-person instruction, doing it in a very deliberative way, focusing on our youngest cohort, TK to 2, grades 3 to 6, making sure we have 3 months of free PPE, making sure we have a testing regime in place, making sure we have more accountability and transparency in terms of data and spread, contact tracing plans in place, working across the spectrum, 1,000+ school districts up and down the state, working with administrators, superintendents, both the local and county level, as well as our classified employees, not just our teachers, which are foundational to make sure our custodial staff and our bus drivers and our cafeteria workers are all supported in these efforts. We've got a framework to get vaccines into the arms of our educators, and we are very confident we can start to move to get our kids safely back in schools very, very shortly.
Well, why after those months of engagement have you still not been able to get it across the line? I'm wondering why you think California has not been able to get this across the line.
I think the most notable thing, and you heard me say it just a moment ago, a month ago yesterday, we had just shy of 800 deaths reported. It was the highest single-day number of deaths in the state's history since the beginning of this pandemic. It was 3-4 weeks ago that Los Angeles was dealing with a significant surge. It was just a number of weeks ago we were working with other jurisdictions across the country to get mobile vans to address the need to find more body bags because of the deadliness of this pandemic. It wasn't that many weeks ago that we had 56,000 cases, and we had positivity rate close to 14%. We're in a very different place today and look forward to putting out the details plan after we work through those details with the legislature.
Governor Brian Hickey with KCRA. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the partnership with Blue Shield and how people will eventually be able to make those appointments? We've reached out to several counties and they all keep pushing back to the state, and no one really seems to know how that's going to be rolled out.
Well, a lot of people are working already with that third-party agreement. I can attest to that, having visited so many counties over the last few weeks. The vast majority, overwhelming majority of those counties are converting to the My Turn application, which is the statewide end-to-end program that will allow us not only notification when your turn is up to get the vaccine based upon the tiering that we put out, but also have an end-to-end in terms of our data analytics, the ability to actually schedule all on that one single app. We just now are going through 3 phases. This is the first phase of that transition to the TPA, and in that transition is getting people off those old systems, and there's so many different systems in this state, predates all of us here, and we're trying to get everybody on this single platform. So in that transition, we said this for weeks and weeks. I said it yesterday, I said it the day before, I'll say it again today. There's going to be some white water, there's going to be a little headwind, and we're working in that transition. I was in 4 counties yesterday, and that transition's going pretty well, but it's a transition. And so people are getting used to the new coding, new strategies, and we're hopeful that we can work out the bugs. By the way, including the issue of abuse in terms of people getting the codes. We're going to go away from group codes to individual codes, and we're working with the counties on that. We don't like to see those abuses. We've been highlighting those abuses. They haven't been highlighted for us. We were down at Ramona Gardens. We were highlighting that with a number of legislators just a few days ago, where it was pretty clear at that public housing site that not everyone was from that community. And we found out subsequently that that code, somehow a community-based organization shared that code, and there was a group code, and you started to see people come from outside that community. So we're working through those things, and we're correcting for those.
Hi, Phil Wellen with the LA Times. One of the reasons schools haven't reopened this year in California is because of the restrictions that your own administration has placed on that. I mean, there are case-based restrictions for reopening. And why do teachers have so much of a say in the reopening plans when people like farm workers, who you just saw, people like firefighters, people like grocery store clerks, if they don't go to work, they don't get paid, and they don't have a say about whether they go into work.
I think
Secondly,
forgive me.
If you guys don't reach a deal on schools and kids don't return this year, who should Californians hold responsible for that?
So a lot of schools are opening. We have thousands plus schools that are open, been operating, have been open for some time in the state. Guidelines the state of California put out, a 25 case rate, was guided by the work that WHO had put out, Harvard University and others, consistent with a lot, not all. We're a little more restrictive, acknowledging that, than the CDC guidelines and the spirit, certainly, of what the Biden administration is hoping to accomplish. The entire state is below that 25 case rate, has been for some time. That's why I've been very demonstrable, very specific in my hope and expectation that we safely reopen these schools and we move forward. And we look forward to working through the details with the legislature and getting our kids safely back in school. But I want to note, I have a little bit of experience with this. My kids have been in school, out of school, in school, out of school. That teachers are still teaching. We need to respect that. It's just not optimal, online versus in person, for social-emotional reasons and other reasons. And so they are being paid to teach. And with respect, you can't teach without teachers. And we believe everyone has a voice. And we believe we go a lot farther when we go together as opposed to fast when we try to go alone. And that's the spirit of our engagement and negotiations.
We're going to take one more question. Hi, Mackenzie Mays with Politico. I'm asking about schools as well. I won't ask about the details of the deal, but, you know, building on Phil's question, yesterday, Assemblymember Phil Ting said that local control was a complete failure when it comes to schools. And so I'm wondering if you think it's been a complete failure, and if you are concerned that at this point that even vaccines won't be enough for some big school districts to open as they negotiate with their unions.
Yeah, forgive me, I barely heard your comments. I certainly didn't hear that Assembly member's comments, so I can't even comment about his comments except to say we're working with the legislature to work through these issues, and I look forward to socializing those very, very shortly. We put out a plan in December. We've been working together to address so many different issues. This is unlike any other school system in the United States. It's 6+ million kids, hundreds of thousands of professionals that make these schools really work. 58 counties, 470 cities, 1,050+ school districts, different independent county elected boards, et cetera. Size and scale and scope requires some consideration, nuance, like everything we're doing with the size of 21 states, populations combined. And so one size does not fit all, and so we have to tailor-make strategies and incentives and baseline expectations. We're doing just that, and we're looking forward to sharing with you the fruits of all those efforts, hopefully in the next few days.
Can you guarantee that California students will all be back in school this year?
We're looking forward to letting you know more about the details of our efforts in the next few days. I appreciate it. Thank you, Errol, very, very much, and thank you again to this remarkable small business for